Good morning, students. So we have learned how to fan the flame to inspire the people in our churches, ministries, and communities to participate in the process of community transformation. We have learned how to equip them, how to develop leadership teams. But it's not enough to engage them and equip them. You have to equip them to sustain the work, to sustain it for a lifetime and for generations, because the process of community transformation is not fast. The most important problems are deeply rooted, are not easy to shift. We need to be internally prepared for the long haul, and that requires deep and profound faith. So how do we do that? How do we build our work? How do we shape our work so that it enables us to sustain? There are a number of insights that have come as we have done this work around the world of faith-rooted organizing that I just want to share with you. The first one is that it is essential that in the process we support our families. Often in the United States, people engage in community organizing when they are very young or when they are very old, because they really experience that there's a tension between being with your family, taking care of your family, and putting all of this energy into the changing of your community. There is that tension unless you actually engage your family in the process. One of the gifts of organizing in many places in the global South is that children are engaged. Children are seen not only as future leaders, but as actual leaders, emerging leaders, people with something to give. In the civil rights movement in the United States, the children's marches were incredibly powerful strategies for transforming hearts and minds. They started because of a horrible incident in which a church was bombed in Birmingham and 6 little girls died. The parents, the adults of the community, were devastated by that experience. The children themselves organized the first children's march. So when children are engaged, when their gifts are respected, when they're seen as God's agents, then families are supported in the process in a way that's very different than if the children are pushed aside so that people can do the work. Same thing with elderly people. Great-grandparents may not be able to participate actively, but they may have amazing gifts to give. And again, if you engage them, if you ask for their wisdom, if you engage them, you can sustain the struggle because the basic unit of the family is respected and supported. It also, though, means that you do have to do the work a little differently. 9-year-olds don't do well with 4 hours of speakers. The truth is that the 9-year-old in us doesn't do well with 4 hours of speakers either. That if you begin to create your actions and your events so that they appeal to a 9-year-old, they will appeal more to everyone. So it's really important to think about how you are welcoming, how you pay attention to the rhythm of people of different ages and support families in the process. Which of course leads to the next one, which is that just as you can't pull the fishing line tight without ever letting it go and be able to catch the fish, in the same way, we need Sabbath. Sabbath is one of the 10 Commandments. It's the only one that clergy often break. But we really have to understand that the rhythm of work and rest is necessary in order to sustain any effort. So you have to plan that in. There's often in the United States a subtle war between generations around this. My generation tends to be very committed to workaholism. The generation of my daughter tends to be very committed to a form of self-care that I often see as indulgent. So we have a little subtle war between us. The answer to both errors is what I think of as communal self-care, which is that we work together to try to figure out what the most urgent needs are, who can take off and who needs to be present, and we alternate so that it's not always the same people doing all the work and the same people resting. But communal self-care comes from really preparing to sustain a movement, really seeing ourselves as a community of leaders and not just individual leaders. Another core area for sustaining the struggle is really being in the moments, the seasons of a struggle. So when you have a victory, even if it's a very tiny victory, you really need to celebrate. Celebration gladdens the heart. Celebration uplifts the spirit. Celebration heals. Celebrate every victory. In the same fashion, and for the same reason, when you have a defeat, you need to lament. The scripture is full of lament, and most of the psalms that start with lament end up with praise. In the Pentecostal tradition, particularly, which I am very deeply connected to, we tend to emphasize celebration at the expense of lament, and it means that our celebration can be hollow and unreal, that we really need to learn how to cry when it's time to cry, and to move from lamentation to hope. So that's the process that we need to go through emotionally as a community. The last value and set of processes that I want to raise has to do with renewing relationships. Our churches and our movements never fall apart because of personal conflict, right? We wish all the time, right? But we have amazing resources in our Christian faith for reconciliation. We just don't often use them in these arenas. So we have to learn how to use all of the gifts and tools of conflict resolution in Scripture and in our Christian tradition in the process of making sure that our relationships are renewed in our movements. We also need to spend time together that is renewing. And time together that is renewing is time that is not task-oriented, time that is just involved in appreciating each other and the gift of each other. So timeless time is critical for renewing relationships. So these are, of course, not an exhaustive list. Think for yourself. What is it that sustains and renews me? What is it that sustains and renews us? And make sure that that is built into the way that you structure your community transformation so that you can sustain the work for a lifetime and for generations. Thank you.